So, welcome back to Paranormal Perspectives. My name is Kieran Mace. I have Christine, our lovely medium. Hello. And our new friend here, Siobhàn, also a medium. Hello. Thanks for being here.
Alright.
This time, we're going to talk about ghost stories, basically. So, being the kind of time of year we like to kind of gather around the digital campfire and share a few stories. I think all of us have experienced a few interesting things, and it's just nice to share a few stories, kind of make you think about the world, about the way we perceive things. And so, yeah. So, to Christine first, have you seen a ghost?
Yep, I certainly have. And I didn't know it was a ghost, but I was working at a hospital. I walked onto the ward, and it was 4 bays and 3 side rooms. And in one of the side rooms was an old lady. She'd been there quite a long while. She was confused and everything. And as I walked on, I saw her walk across as if she was going to the other side of the corridor. So I said as I got to the station, the nurse's station, I said, I think it's either staff nurse or sister. I says, such and such is out of bed. And she looked at me and she says, bloody better not be. She died an hour ago. We're waiting for the mortuary to come and collect her body. There's my ghost.
Gosh. So, how did that make you feel?
A bit strange, but yeah, it was real. It was absolutely real. I'm sorry, I'm just looking down. My cat's getting out. Sorry.
Yeah, so do you have any stories, Siobhàn, that you kind of want to share?
Oh, I've got a lot of experience. I've seen spirit on several different occasions, from a young age up until probably recently. They're all different. They're all very different. There was something when I was a child, and I'm not sure whether it was a spirit, a UFO, an alien, or some kind of lucid dream. But there was something, and it's very vivid in the mind today. There was some kind of weird looking woman who woke me from a sleep and was asking me to go with her. And I could hear lots of chattering. I couldn't see anybody else, but I could hear lots of chattering. There was a heat shimmer, which was another incident. There was no form to it, but it was like, like when you look into the distance, but it moved very rapidly towards me, which utterly terrified me. I saw legs a couple of times, just legs. Chris was with me on one occasion.
I've
I
seen
saw
a pair
one
of
at
legs.
work.
Yeah, okay, carry on.
Yeah. So I worked in, for anybody who comes from Birmingham, they'd all remember Rackham's, and I worked in the cafe in the basement of Rackham's, which is on the old, it would be where the convent and the medieval monastery would have been built back in the day. It's on there. So we're right there. And I just saw this black pair of legs just appear from nowhere. I'm working away, and it was just went straight through the wall.
You only saw the legs?
Just the legs, no upper part. I'm wondering whether it was, you kind of try and work it out, and then you think, is it something to do with the level, so time, because obviously you go down, the further you go, the further we go back. I don't know. You know what I mean? Is it something to do that the levels have changed and you're only... Because there's the story about the guy in York, he saw a load of Roman soldiers, but he was down and he only saw the bottom half of them. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm wondering. Chris was with me another time, and our very good friend Gilly, and we were in a place on the Welsh Marches, which is a notorious. It's been notorious for hundreds of years. And it was middle of the night, full moon. We'd gone for a walk. Silent, beautiful river, absolutely idyllic. We were all having such a relaxed, wonderful time. We'd sat by the river and dangled our feet in the midnight waters and all that. We were walking back, and not one of us spoke to each other, but we just lifted our skirts and we just ran. We're walking up a track, and there's the three of us. It's open, it's not wooded. And then there's just these pair of like neon white legs walking beside us, and they just like dream speed. They zoom in front of us, and then they were behind a tree, but in front of us, and all we could see was the legs. We never mentioned anything to each other. We didn't say, oh, what's that or anything. We just lifted our skirts and ran, and left Chris behind because she was at the back running, screaming, "Wait for me, wait for me," as we ran.
Can I just say, Kieran, the pair of them, both younger than me, just hurled themselves up the street and left me to deal with the clutches of whatever demon was trying to manifest. Because I tell you, I thought the hounds of hell were at my back. And it was all, I mean, obviously it was all, but I saw those legs too. And that was...
The funny thing about that incident was that we didn't really discuss it in length at that moment in time. In fact, it was almost about 2 years later before we actually sat down and compared with each other what we actually saw on that evening. There was something we just sort of like...
Is it almost like you couldn't, like, you're too scared to talk about it?
It wasn't as if there was anything that was tangible, that was like fear to talk about something. We didn't really discuss it on the night that it happened. We carried on with our walk. It was almost as if nothing had, kind of happened. And we just didn't really discuss it. We don't get together that often, the three of us, but there were periods where we could have, and we just didn't. And it was about 2 or 3 years later that we actually sort of sat down and said, what happened that night? What did you see? And we all came out with pretty much the same thing, and it was like, okay. But quite a notorious area, and I think it was definitely, lots of historical bloodshed there. You know what I mean? Very much. I mean, the actual place where we were, the border between England and Wales ran through. One side was Wales, and then the other side of the street was England. So it was a real kind of weird place as well, wasn't it, Chris? It was a kind of League of Gentlemen feel about it.
Obviously, we won't say the place, but it gave me the willies.
Yeah, it was an Offa's Dyke. It was somewhere in Offa's Dyke.
It was a strange place, and
yeah,
I was really frightened that night. And like I say, my friends left me behind. I managed to overcome the trauma, but it was a fear like you get when you're a kid. When you get really frightened.
So have other people had an experience like you've had there? Have you heard of other people kind of having a similar kind of encounter with ghostly legs?
What, in that place?
In that area, yeah. I wonder.
No, I've never even thought about looking into that. How mad's that?
Yeah, I would imagine it's got a lot of. That's
kind of a bit weird for me and you, isn't it, Chris? For us not even to have thought that, because me and her are always like doing bits of research, and so we like to get into the nitty gritty of things. You know what I mean? So it's kind of mad that we just never even thought about doing that. But it was a strange place, and it was a strange feeling there, and it was a strange. It didn't feel great. You know what I mean? It didn't feel great. I have seen other things, and I've just not been scared at all. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, what's that?
Yeah, some places sort of have that kind of vibe, don't they? Because you can kind of feel them before even you experience anything at all. Because I still remember, and I mentioned this to Christine before about my visit to Oxford Castle. Like, we did this ghost investigation, and I thought it kind of seems like a predictable place to experience a ghost, because we're going on an investigation, so we expect something to happen there, as if it's like a performance of sort. So I kind of went there thinking, nothing really much would happen there, but I just wanted to be part of that experience. And it's the first time I saw something that, in my waking life, I couldn't quite fully explain, because we're doing this experiment in the crypt of Oxford Castle, and there are kind of a small group of people there kind of observing on the outer rim of it. And it's the first time I saw table tipping. And before I saw that, I thought, it was a bit of a joke, really, more of a performance kind of thing. It seems like something you can quite easily fake. But But I saw something that kind of, I don't know, I was white after. I was literally white and sweating as I came out of the room, because I was asked to carry this table. So I thought, actually, this is great because I can carry the table myself. It's like a little wooden table. I was able to check it for things that seemed a bit off and unusual. I just carried it along and just placed it where they told me to place it, and just I observed the floor, make sure there's nothing there that could move it. And they actually asked me to kind of be part of conducting the experiment. I thought, well, I've seen this done on TV so many times. I feel like I have a rough idea of how to do it in a way that's fair. And they actually made the suggestion about putting the hands on the table, but upside down. So, of course, pushing it, you don't have the strength to put enough to kind of get it to move. And it's not as if the table was ultra heavy. It was relatively light, but not so light you can quite easily nudge it. So we kind of did that. There's 4 of us each corner, the legs outside of the table, not underneath it, like would just like a step away. And then they were kind of speaking out to these spirits. I couldn't do it myself because I felt a bit self-conscious. I was kind of just going with the flow, really. They're asking these questions, and all of a sudden I started to see the table move, and I thought, well, they must be maybe pushing it still. Like, there could be just a bit of movement in there, or sometimes there's a subconscious reaction you get sometimes where you almost want something to happen though, but you don't realize how much you want it to happen, and then the body will kind of react without you kind of fully actioning it. So I thought it might just be that. And then the table started to rock more and more and more the more they spoke. Eventually the table started to kind of jump a little bit, like off the floor ever so slightly, and it kept rocking. Then eventually it got to a point where it started to rotate, as in like the weight shifted to one of the legs, and it rotated at an angle and slowly kind of moved around. And I saw, with my hand still on the table, trying to not freak out, like the leg of the table left the floor, and where the light was placed, I could see the shadow of the table, so I could see it actually lifting off the floor. So that was basically like the last leg that was on the floor, like left the floor. I could see this shadow separate from the leg. It wasn't even a second, it's like half a second, it's just enough, and then just dropped. And that was it, like the energy just dropped in the room, and everything kind of came to a halt, and we couldn't get anything else to happen. And I've still been trying to figure that out in my mind, like years and years after that, like something happened there. Like, yeah, I didn't see a spirit or a ghost, but I saw the effects of something there that I couldn't quite fully understand.
I think that's more common than actually seeing anything.
No, exactly. But other people there saw things like, Christine's. I remember you were there that night, but you weren't in the room when that was happening. But like, did you see anything there at all, like yourself?
Obviously, like you say, you go to places like that, you have expectations. If I'm absolutely honest, I felt something once, and that was all I felt all night. I never saw anything. It was when we went right down at the bottom. Is it the vaults or something like that?
Yeah, it's like a crypt, isn't it? Or
Crypt, whatever it is, yeah. And you walk up to it, yeah, and then it opens out into the room. You've both been there. You know where I am with this, yeah. And I stood sort of like just through the door, and I saw something go past. That was it. Was it. And I thought, okay, but that was it. I didn't experience anything. And yet, I think, do ghosts get fed up with us ghost hunting? But that's for another night, isn't it? Oh God, they're here again. Here we go. Same questions. I mean, if I was a ghost, I'd be going, I would be tempted to do things to upset them, but that's just me. Maybe it's my warped sense.
Yeah, they're probably having a right old belly chuckle, aren't they? You know what I mean? Like, do that. We'll watch them now. They're so predictable, Is there anyone there? Yes.
I like the whole thing, going along in the dark, and I like to be spooked, but I also want to get the hell out of there if there is something. But that's just, yeah. Edinburgh vaults, I've done that twice, and that is massive. Obviously, think about the size of Edinburgh, and apparently people would get lost. And you got rooms, so these rooms were used for storage and apparently nefarious goings on. And then you've got all these like really narrow corridors coming off, and you're just looking down into the darkness. That place gave me the
Well,
heebie-jeebies.
of course. Imagine what level of society you are if you've got to go and live underground. You're
Yeah,
at the bottom. You're at the bottom level of society because
absolutely.
that's all you can afford. So
There was one point I mean, I weren't going to go down, you know me, Siobhàn, I weren't going down none of them tunnels. People were, I wasn't. And I swear, of course it was over 18s, but I swear I heard a little boy's voice.
I think you probably would. I think there's so much negativity without it being anything demonic or anything. Just the hardship of the lives of the countless lives of the people that must have lived down there. We have no idea about these hardships. You know what I mean? It was hideous. In the day. So even just that permeating into the fabric of this subterranean place. You know what I mean?
But I went with a good friend Nadine and stayed in a place called the Witchery. Now that was definitely haunted. I think it had been student accommodation, and it's right on the Royal Mile. And some guy bought it, and he's just basically filled it with antiques, but he's themed it, yeah. And you get like a whole sort of apartments. You get kitchen, the whole lot, and it's sumptuous. But by God, it's haunted. We got there in the afternoon, and Nadine had gone to the loo, which was through a door and then another door. And I was on the phone telling my son I got there, and she came back through, and she says, "What you knocking on the wall for?" I went, "I wasn't knocking on the wall. I wouldn't have." And anyway, all the whole time we were there, her phone just kept draining. She couldn't get a charge in it, there was definitely something going on there. I woke up and I could hear this pinging, and I didn't have an iPhone at the time. I had a little Nokia, and when she woke up, I says, "Your phone's been downloading all night." She went, "Doesn't do that, Chris." I went, "Well, it's been pinging all night." And then when we went to breakfast, the guy told us that this room was supposedly haunted and people heard glasses tinkling. So was that the pinging that I heard? And it's really spooky, that place. We'll have to go, Siobhàn.
They do like to. I believe they like to play with your electronics. Definitely. I went to a place in Yorkshire, and I was just getting voicemail. Message after message after message being left on my phone. And I'm on a ghost hunt. You know what I mean? Just rolling. There was. By the time I got back to the digs where we were staying, there was no more messages on that phone than that there was before I entered that environment. I've got myself on film going, God, there's another message and more messages being coming through.
I found that really interesting because of the electronic thing.
Yeah. That's where I got pulled. I've got an EVP, a whole sentence whereby a very broad Yorkshireman going, "You're a mucky hole."
Yeah, I've heard that.
So on another occasion on that same ghost hunts at a different location but connected, they literally drained everything. Everything just went down. It was in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere, in a potato field in the middle of nowhere, and the cameras, the lights, the phones, everything just went.
Yeah, it's always energy, isn't it? Because it seems like, I wonder if like negativity is negativity like a catalyzer? So these places where people have experienced quite awful things tend to have more activity.
Yeah, it was a place of where awful things had taken place. It was a battlefield. Well, I'd done my geography a little bit wrong, and I'd worked out that actually, as a Yorkist, self-proclaimed Yorkist, I was literally standing in the Lancastrian ranks.
Oh, amazing.
Things like, yeah, but it did have that feel, actually, where he drains everything, but he had this real dense, almost like walking through treacle kind of feel. It had this real...
I recognise that. I realize the more people I speak to, they have a similar experience where it's like an energy in the air. Sometimes it's like a gravity shift, or it's like walking through a treacle, like you described. Things seem to kind of you feel like there's a resistance in you being there. And there's places that I know that when I feel that I have to leave immediately, like this, my wife's used to it now. There's some places I enter very rarely. I feel like I'm sorry, I can't be in this shop. I have to leave. I don't want to explain why, because clearly I'm not wanted there for whatever reason. And it's not just the security guard. It just there's something there that kind of hidden that wants me to, out, out, out. Including this in my book that I've been writing over the past few months, and a lot of it focuses on this house that I grew up in when I lived in Oxford. And I just want to share my story, if that's okay. My most memorable story being at this property when I began to physically see actual things firsthand was I had this beautiful cat growing up called Puss, like this tortoiseshell creature, and I kind of grew up with her. She was there with me when I was a baby. As I grew up, like through my younger years, like she used to sleep on my bed with me every night, on top of my head because of the warmth. And it was quite comfortable actually. She was like my pillow basically, and like we had quite a close connection. And yeah, sadly one night a vehicle was speeding through our street and hit her. She died immediately. And then yeah, through that obviously we were kind of grieving and going through quite a shock that night. So I had my chance to say goodbye to her, and I saw her actually no longer alive. That's traumatic in itself for a kid though, but my mum needed to do that just so I could register it. Otherwise, not saying goodbye is also like, a very hard thing to do. But I went to bed that night kind of numb, really, just not being able to process everything. And I was just laid awake at about 10 o'clock at night, which for me back then was quite late. And to me now it's early. I was just laid there and thinking about my cat and used to her being there. And I could hear at that point like purring in the room, like she used to when she used to come and visit me, kind of late in the night. And it got louder and louder to the point where, I then began to think maybe I am actually hearing this, because at first I thought I'm just used to hearing her make that noise. So it's kind of memory really just replaying. It's that kind of routine. It got louder and louder to the point where I had to sit up on my bed to look where my feet were. And where my feet were placed, basically, I felt like a pressure right by my feet, right at the very base of my feet. And I began to think, oh, maybe there's something wrong with the mattress though, because it was quite a broken old bed, let's just say. I destroyed it in every possible way. But no, it wasn't really the mattress itself kind of giving way. Like something was getting pushed down, because I saw that it compressed, then decompressed, then moved a bit further up my foot and compressed and decompressed. And I saw the actual covers of the bed move in as if like a weight, invisible weight was pushing them in. Very kind of small as well, almost paw-sized. And one by one, I saw them just move and move and move. It began to be more real. Of course, the closer it got to me, and I began to think, then shouldn't I be panicking though? Because this isn't right. This isn't. I'm told this can't happen. But I felt completely at ease, as if a friend was visiting. So I just trusted it, and I let it walk up my arm slowly up to my shoulder, and then I could hear her purring by my ear, and eventually sat on my head. I could feel the warmth of her there. I can remember like moving my hands over here, thinking like there's nothing there. And then I just sat there, and I refused to sleep for about 2-3 hours. I just kept just forcing myself awake, because I knew that night that would be my last time with my friend. And it was like the most surreal but beautiful experience that I've ever had. And eventually I passed out. Eventually I kind of fell asleep, and I woke up the next morning and she was gone, like silent. But I woke up the next day expecting to be very upset and grieving. I felt at peace. I felt like my friend came to check on me one last time, and that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced.
It's crisis apparition.
Yeah, is that what it's called?
I can
Crisis
pass you over
apparition?
to the lady who's just crisis apparition. It's really common. I've got my own story about a crisis, not so much like that, but about some music playing just after my mother died. Well, my mum died a couple of years ago. We were clearing her house out.
It's in my book.
Yeah, it's in. Chris is the expert. She's just written a book all about crisis apparitions and all about different people's experience from all over the world. Called A Violet Feather on Amazon if you want to get it, folks.
Great book, love it.
But yeah, my mum died. My mum passed away in hospital Christmas 2022. So early December, sorry, she passed away. So through that period, she lived in a council house and had a month to clear the house out. My mother was a complete music nut and had always been a music nut of any genre. She listened to Eminem and opera and anything in between. You know what I mean?
Love it.
She absolutely adored any. Yeah, she didn't diss any kind of music. If she thought it was good, then she liked it. You know, and she would always. So there was this huge, you know, she'd always had a huge collection of music, and it had evolved from vinyl to CDs to, you know, an MP3 player, and eventually she had it all stored onto a personal computer. But she still had the hi-fi sitting in the bedroom with a million CDs surrounding it that had been there for years because nobody wanted these things anymore. They're obsolete. Nobody wants them. It wasn't plugged in. It was had a, you know, you could write your name in the dust. It had just been sat there. We were clearing the house out. We were downstairs. Music went on, and my partner was with me, and I started moaning. I said, "Bloody noise, neighbours!" I says, "I bet my poor mum had to put up with that noise." And then I kind of listened a little bit closer, and I said, "Well, that's not next door. Actually, that's coming from upstairs." When I went in, the hi-fi that had not been used for 20 years and wasn't even plugged in was playing Michael Jackson's a song I actually love, was bang in the middle of it, playing Michael Jackson's Pretty Young
Which song
Thing.
was it, by the way?
Is it Pretty Young Thing? I'm not even going to attempt to sing it, but yeah.
Oh, no, now you have to, of course. Oh yeah, I think I remember the song. Yeah.
I can hear the tune in my head, but no.
I love Michael Jackson growing up.
The volume went. Did you hear that? The volume went just at that moment.
Yeah.
It was a Michael Jackson tune, and it was like, wow, you know, it wasn't plugged in. It wasn't plugged in because I was, you know, I was stood in an empty room with a plug in my hand, looking at my partner, and we were like, fuck, you know what I mean? How does that even happen? Chris has had her own crisis apparition. So yeah, they're pretty common, aren't they? I think they're there to. Some people would tell us that we're hallucinating. I don't know how you hallucinate a CD player turning itself on, but you know. But are we?
No, I think when you look at crisis apparitions, right? I mean, a really good crisis apparition, the person seeing it should see it before they have been told that the person is dead. You can't explain that away with hallucination. No. You know, if you know somebody's dead and you experience something, there'll always be people that say, "Oh, you know,"
but they do often happen just after death, don't they? When you're in that, you know, whether it's your mom or your cat, you know, you're in that moment at that moment. And you get them then, you know, when you're in that real horrible.
I think we perceive more. I don't. When we talk about ghosts, I think ghosts are something different from spirit. So, does that make sense? To me, a ghost always has the thing about.
There must be different kinds of ghosts as well.
Absolutely. I think some are residual, some are intelligent and still doing what they want to do, and then you get spirit. And I think when we have grief, we go into almost like an altered state, and we can perceive it. Yeah, if we are a bit sensitive, like mediums and things like that, I think we can perceive more going on.
Maybe just as spiritual people, we know in our we believe, we don't know, we believe that that they go somewhere else. So therefore, it's a continuation for us, and we understand that the sadness is about is about the love that you held for the person and the fact that you're going to miss them. You know what I mean? Grief is really about us, isn't it? You know, the grief is really kind of about us. We're grieving for the loss of them in our lives.
Grieving is for the living.
We're going to miss them. Yeah, they've gone. They're not in that space that we're, because surely they know more because they've gone into spirit by now. And as you say, they can, you know, kind of see the bigger picture, and they're floating on the cloud, looking down, going, "Stop being silly."
Yeah, I think some ghosts are actually people who don't know they're dead. Or they're so materialistic they can't move away from the earth plane. I mean, I'll take I can quite imagine when my dad he went into hospital, had an operation, didn't come round, found himself on the other side. I'm sure he would not have been able to comprehend that he was dead, because he'd always been brought up that dead is, you know, that's it, you're out. So I imagine he would have had a hard time adapting or understanding where he was. And I think some ghosts are actually people who can't get their head around that they're dead, so they cling to the physical. Yeah, that they will move on eventually. I certainly think, you know, that they somehow they're still attached.
Or they're scared of going over for some religious reason, or, you know, dogma, or.
You're saying that you believe that ghosts can become spirits?
I think what the problem is the inadequacy of the language we've got here, because to me a ghost is something that haunts. Yeah, it is seen again and again and again. Yeah, and it appears to be not residual, like it's aware that it's what it is. Does that make sense?
For me, if it's seen again and again and again, I find that is residual. And if it's not seen so much, or something gets coarse, then that is like it's that, you know, what the kind of moment, what is that, you know what I mean, sort of moment.
We saw something recently. I can't name the place because, but it was a big Elizabethan house, and we went there on a Sunday to have a look around, really, you know, and it's all gorgeous. Anyway, on the way out, there's a little kind of place where you pay to get in, get a drink of water, whatever. And I said, "Have you got any ghosts?" And the lady said, "Leave our ghosts alone. We're quite happy with them." Anyway, I says, "Oh, it'd be great for a ghost hunt and all the rest." No, won't have none of that here. And I get it. And her husband says, "But we've got a photograph." Oh, what a perler! You can tell him, Siobhàn, because
it's one of them. It's a cookie noodle kind of photo, because so you've got an Elizabethan house, and it's got three wings. There's one there, one there, one there, and you know, like the ornamental gardens would in the middle. So onto the right hand side is the, you know, like the bay windows with the mullion windows and all that lot. And they've got a photograph. It's a partial ruin, and that room is you know, it's empty. It's just, they tell you what it was once, but they've got a photograph of a guy that's literally looking out of the window in very late 17th century, early 18th century clothes, looking directly at the person who's dressed in 1960s, late 50s, 60s clothes that's taking the photograph. So what have we got? So we've got a photo of what we see as a ghost, but the ghost from the past is looking at the person from the future that's taking the photograph. It's got a perplexed expression on its face, as if to say, what is that? It can't work out what it's looking at.
So that would indicate potential consciousness.
Obviously, it's woo. You can see everything. You can see the whiskers. You can see the collar. You can see that it's undone. It's, you know, he's got the cravat and it's like undone. So he's at home. He's feeling casual. It's the billiard room, which is a male-dominated area. You know what I mean? Women wouldn't have gone in there. There's no reason for them to go in there. And yeah, it's
He
just
was
it's
he was
just
dressed
weird.
he was dressed like Paul Dark Days.
Absolutely.
Um, it
You
was
could see that he could see that person taking that photograph. That person from the
absolutely, and
1700s was aware of that person from 1960.
I asked the guy if I could have a copy, if he'd let me have. He wouldn't even let me have a picture. He said, "No, we don't want people coming here and And I get it. I absolutely get it. Um, and I wouldn't give that up ever. But it was like, oh
Yeah, it
my
was
god,
definitely a do 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 do
oh
do.
my god, it's got to be. I mean, this is a couple of very sort of normal people, and they obviously want to protect the monument that they are in charge of, and I get it. Bless their hearts. But definitely, it's probably the best photograph of a ghost.
I think
Oh,
when
I've
you
I'd love
say
to see
like, would
that.
you do a ghost? I think what they think is like, are you open for us to open it up and like have people in here night in, night out? And it's
Yeah,
God's like, no, that's not what I mean.
yeah.
A
But,
few select people
uh,
just once.
uh, but yeah,
Like, we won't even publicise it. Just let us come. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But
I would love to.
I think that like no,
Um,
yeah, I'd love to go to some places, but yeah, so
yeah, I
what's
believe
a
in
what
ghosts.
is a ghost? Again, we're back to the question: have you seen a ghost? Yeah, what is a ghost? So a residual has got to be an echo. It's got to be like a star. We're seeing something from the past. You know what I mean? It's for me. If it's something that's like the bus keeps going down the road at the same time every year, it's like a recording. It's not really a bus there that's not a phantom bus that's actually doing it. It's there's a woman in white that stands at the side of the roads on November the 25th every 5 years and Wales. You know what I mean? It's got to be an anniversary. There's something. Old buildings, they say they see, people that have worked there or people that have owned the places that they do the same walk every day, the same doors open and shut. Is it or are they still doing it? Which brings us to lots of other questions, because if they're still doing it, are they seeing that building as they saw it, or is it how we
Yeah,
see it?
yeah,
Well,
that's a good
that's
question.
interesting. That's interesting you say that, because and it was one of those things I remember back from the 90s. I watched it, and it was about four guys. I think they were Oxford students at the time, and they went to, they were out sort of horsing around and everything, and they went to look at this monument. It was, oh God, a ruin. There's a few archways left. I don't know exactly where they were, and they both experienced it, seeing it as it was, and almost like watching something go on. And they were interviewing them for this program, and I mean, they're old men at this point, certainly in their 60s. And they said, "Yeah, we remember it really well." And they talked about it on screen, and they all witnessed this. It was like a time slip. There was
Yeah.
a bit of, and it turned into like a spiral staircase, and stuff was going on, and it was almost, so tell me what that is. What is that? That's a time slip. I think what we have here when we see ghosts, experience ghosts, I think it's just, I think it's us perceiving into the, the greater consciousness. We're reading it. We're
I
seeing
think
it.
it might be as hard for them to see us as it is for us to see them.
Well, William Stead, who died on the Titanic, and he run a newspaper, he came through to his, I think it was his daughter via a medium afterwards, and he spoke about how hard it was for spirits to communicate with the living. He says, because we have to impose our thoughts onto the medium. So yeah, I think they apparently see us as almost through a mist. That's what he was talking about. He said, look, he was looking into a room, but it was misty.
That makes sense. Are you talking about that book that you recommended a while ago, uh, The Blue
The
Island?
Blue Island.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll say
yeah.
to anyone watching, that is an amazing read. I think you can read it. I think it's like public access now anyway, so I think anybody can read it for free. The
Yeah.
Blue Island, it kind of talks about, as you said, like somebody that passed away on the Titanic, on the other side was able to speak through a medium. And essentially, through a trance, a medium wrote an entire book in a trance, which obviously had to be edited slightly just to make it a bit more legible, though. But the idea that that could be, if true, like potential evidence for the soul existing outside of the body and being essentially somewhere else transmitting, then proves, if true, that there are other places you can exist in, which kind of adds to the whole ghost theory that ghosts could be simply not just simply just dead reliving in that moment in time. Could it be simply transferred over into another place? And the barriers seem to kind of cross at times and maybe kind of get quite close together to the point where we have crossover points.
So they're just popping in and out for a visit.
I hate to think that some poor soul, as is hanging around somewhere for 300 years. I mean, Jesus Christ, that'd be dreadful, wouldn't
It's
it?
like, if you go to, Warwick Castle or something, you go down in the dungeons or they're haunted, and you think, well, why would anybody want to stay in the dungeons for 400-500 years? Why would you want to do that? Or, the Jubilee or whatever it is it's called. It's like, once you're dead, the first place you do is get out, and you'd be like, see you later, bye.
The question is it 500 years for us, or is it a day or two for them? Because if they exist in a plane where time
we don't know
works
that,
differently or doesn't exist.
We don't know that.
Yeah.
We don't
know that, do we? No. We don't know. And we never will until it's too late for us to give us. That's the thing about this, isn't it? A lot of it we can be, make great educated guesses or even what you truly believe in your own heart, but you can't really until you're dead. You can't really say anything. Yeah, man.
No, absolutely. Well, every belief is still valid.
People see things before they. My mother sat up in bed and says, "Hello, Dad." Not long before she didn't. Not. It was a couple of days before she died, but it wasn't long before she became unresponsive. You know what I mean? So, people say that there was definitely a night in the hospital when she was dying, transitioning. It took a period of days for this to happen. That there was a blue orb in the air. There was you could audibly hear like a race, like a rip of an electric or something. Because I was on a little camp bed and it was so loud it made me sit up. You know what I mean? And said, "What was that?" I just saw the blue orb.
Would you say that electric sound was like a crisp packet being squished?
It sounded like a rip to me, a tear of something.
Because I heard it, but to me it was like static electricity. I was on duty one night and we were doing a drug round at 2:00 in the morning, and we went into the first bay, and you've got 8 patients, so you've got 4 either side. You've got a bit in the middle, stuff in the middle, chairs and that. And right in the middle of the room was something, and it was like a ball of fog, right? And of course, we're pushing the trolley in, chatter, and it's like, and it was there, and I bet you it's, can you see, about this big, about that big, and it was kind of pulsating. If I put a colour to it, I would say it would be like a linen colour, so it was it wasn't white, yeah, and it was really, really weird because we didn't say anything to each other, me and the staff nurse. We just backed off and went out and did the other base and went back, and it had gone by the time we went in. About an hour later, woman went into cardiac arrest and didn't come out of it. So what was that appearing in the middle? That was it. Was it the spirit coming for her, the energy? But like
I've experienced a ball of grey mist just swirling, just in the middle of the kitchen. It's just turned around and it's like, oh, what is that? Turn back again and look back and it's gone.
This was
You know,
like
perfect ball,
it was almost
like smoking size.
this was more like an egg shape. It was more oval, but it seemed to be to me, it seemed to be growing. And as I say, we went up there. What the hell was that? She went, I don't know. But she wasn't willing to sort of like. But yeah, later on, the lady in the first bed went into cardiac arrest. So I think it was the spirit world coming for her.
Yeah, it sounds like a preparation. Because I've experienced that too. Because yeah, sorry, it sounds really weird that you're saying this as well. Because I'm beginning to sort of see the connections. Because yes, I mentioned a few episodes ago about me encountering an entity in this out of body experience, and I encountered it again a few years later when, again, back to the haunted house that I grew up in. I come back after having a horrible day at school, etc. Like I was already in a negative state, which kind of makes me ask the question about, does negativity act as a catalyst for these experiences to happen? But I kind of ran upstairs to my room, just wanted to shut off away from the world. And this entity that I met many years ago was there again. And when I opened the door to my room, it shifted basically everything, like the energy of the room, almost like I could feel it being static, like dense, almost like, when it's foggy, they always use the expression in the UK, everything's very close, as in everything's very kind of humid, very almost like suffocating. And at the same time, I could see the room was shimmering, and it's almost like there's electricity in the air, basically. But it was very dark looking. It just didn't quite look like my room, because I could see it like slowly twisted and warping, and it's one of the strange things that I've seen. So I kind of wonder that, like your experience, basically, was something passing through them? Was it trying to interact with me or something else? But it seems to be when we have these kind of big build-ups, we get these kind of bizarre distortions. So it seems to be like that's like an opening of some sort for something to happen.
Well, they used to say, didn't they, when the veil thins and all the rest of it, we can see I'm going back, back into the old folklore and that about, I actually believe that's what we're experiencing, this thickening up or thinning down. But it's because you've got an ability to open your eyes and see it. I think it's probably happening more than what we realise. People experience, I found that from doing the research for the book, people are experiencing all this. Call them ghosts, call them spirit, call them what they are.
Keep it very quiet.
It's all pointing towards the fact that when we expire the physical body, we're just going on and living in a different dimension. And sometimes I think that's what ghosts are. We can see them. They can see us.
Well, I'm hoping wherever I go to next, I can choose a body that's a bit taller. That would be a nice advantage if we can actually have a choice over what we are, over where we go. Or maybe like a body that could grow a better beard. I've never been able to grow a very good beard all my life, and I'm still an adult. But anyway. At
least you've got a face to try it with.
True.
So yeah, I believe in ghosts. I think they're part of the greater consciousness. Everything is, we're all just part of the greater consciousness, and it's all its manifestations. I'm going to come back and haunt, wouldn't you?
No.
Seriously.
I'd have some fun.
No, I won't.
Just for once.
No.
Yeah.
I've no intentions whatsoever of. If I could do a day trip and pop in and see my loved ones, then yes, of course, I would do that. But no, me and this world don't get on. So I've always said it. I refuse to reincarnate. I refuse. I'm going to dig my heels, and if they tell me that I'm not. I'm having none of it. I'm having none of it.
Is it a lot of these spiritual people will say that this planet's kind of designed to be a school of sorts, but it's almost deliberately designed to always be a challenge for every single person on this planet, like reincarnated here.
I think it's definitely in a negative space, isn't it? It's definitely
it's a lower vibrational planet.
Absolutely, it's a harsh place. It's a harsh place, and it can be cruel. You know what I mean? And I think it's about learning lessons. What those lessons are, let's hope that we get to a grips with. I think they're personal lessons, a lot of them. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, we often don't learn a lot of those lessons till we get older. But
Tell me, what would you learn if everything was all hunky dory? Nothing. That's why we go to school. That's what we have to learn, these lessons, and we have to.
I think human nature comes into that, doesn't it? And I think, as a species, we kind of like a bit of chaos. So even, if we believe it's all true, we were given hunky dory, you know what I mean? God gave us everything, you know what I mean? And then what did we do with it? We completely, you know what I mean? So, I think we're animals, well, what animals? We're pack animals. So there's always going to be this alpha and, this order, and, you know what I mean? It's a completely natural thing for us to do. Competitiveness, you know what I mean? It's probably complete. There's too many of us living too close together, and, we just get on each other's nerves, don't we?
I think we're kind of meant to, really, because we're meant to challenge each other. Do you want to kind of share like one more story basically before we kind of close? Like, do you want to kind of finish on something kind of fantastic? So, like, is there anything else that you can share that kind of made you think, oh?
Well, for me, I've always experienced some kinds of. I've always been aware. I've seen spirit from a young age. I've seen several spirits. I've sensed them more, smelt them, heard them. You know what I mean? Felt them more than see them. Sort of thing. I've saw a full blown apparition standing in the bathroom doorway, in his choir boy an old man in a choir boy outfit, and I was carrying a cup of tea, walking down the hallway, and as quick as I looked at him, looked away and looked back again, it was gone. There was nothing terrifying about it, but I can remember how many pores he had on his skin. I can remember it in minute detail. It was a blink of an eye. It was less than a blink of an eye. You know what I mean? It was like that, it was gone. But I can remember everything. The folds of the gown, everything. It's crazy.
But I don't tend to see many physical manifestations much, but there's only kind of one experience that I remember where this all links to this whole childhood house, blah, blah, blah thing, where it was building up at one point where for a period of a few weeks, I kept hearing noises in my room. It would be about 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, where I'd be woken up by the sound of the party, as people kind of laughing, joking, kind of speaking really loud. I could hear like glasses chinking together when they say cheers, and I actually heard sort of the sound of water being poured. I used to close my window, think, God, who's it must be somebody from down the road, because like down the road from us there's like another housing estate, and I think there's like a social club there, so I thought maybe it was that. But then it kept happening night after night, and it got louder and louder to the point where I woke up one night and it was in my room. And it was the weirdest thing, because I got to a point where I was thinking, this is just silly. And I was looking around trying to figure out like what point of the room was it, basically, because the room felt weird when it happened. Like it felt that gravity shift that I mentioned before. I felt like I was in a party, and I thought, I'm trying to go to school. Like I'm going to school the next day. Like I need to get some sleep. Like just shut up, and leave me alone. And it just continued going like every night for about for a good few weeks, until I eventually like walked out the house one day. I woke up and I could still feel that weird energy though. Yeah, it was daylight. It was almost like I was still in that dream state in the middle of the night. I walked down the steps at the front of my house and was just on my way to school with my backpack on, ready to go. I looked and I saw a pair of legs across the road just in front of me. Like they took like a one step forward and then a step down onto the road, so I could see like the legs bend slightly and then kind of move along. I saw enough detail that I could see it was a pair of blue jeans torn at the bottom, and there's like one area that was a little bit patched where they tried to repair it. They were wearing a pair of Adidas trainers with like the white stripes, and I had like a darker blue with like bits of like mud and bits and pieces. For some reason, it's just fused in my brain. I've never been able to forget the image. Just walking along, and I looked up thinking, maybe there's some other kids trying to cut around me and walk a bit faster, and there's nothing there. It's just a pair of legs. It's like do. I really freaked out at that point. Like for some reason, it almost like it culminated in something. I don't know whether that leg was from the event that was building up, maybe, or if that was just two unrelated events. Either way, just equally bizarre. But I shot basically. I just left, And then I came back, after school, like the end of the day, and I spoke to my sister about it, and I said, like, this really weird things has been happening about this voice. Sorry, these kind of happy voices in the house, in my room. My sister said, I've been hearing the same thing in my room. That's when it begins to kind of click. Basically, there's something clearly inside the house. But I asked my mum about it. Like, she used to wake up during the night anyway, doing all sorts of different things, and didn't hear anything. But how was it isolated to 2 rooms? And we even asked our neighbour about it. It was a semi-detached house. So if it was loud enough, she thought maybe she could hear it there. And she said, no, nothing, no parties, no nothing. She was quite an understanding lady. She was used to us asking really weird questions at that point. But yeah, like, I don't know if, like, were the legs just a member of the party that decided to leave? I just don't know. But I never saw it again. Then it all stopped. It just never came back.
Kieran, why are you asking questions that you'll never get the answer to?
That's my nature.
What you were perceiving, right, when you were hearing things. Now, your sister's your twin, isn't she? Yeah?
She's
on
not
about
an
your
exact twin, but she's like a twin, yeah.
I don't get that. What do you mean?
She's not a physical twin, but we're very similar in many ways, basically. We're not technically twins.
What age was this happening around you?
I was about...
How old?
I was about 15, 16. She's about 4-ish years younger than me. So she was been like 11 or something. She was still kind of young.
How old was the house you were living in?
It's old. It was built in like the early 50s. So it was actually built for soldiers after the Second World War.
Because what you described sounded like somebody from the 70s or the 80s, kind of clothing-wise. You know what I mean? So I was wondering whether it dropped in on a party that had been there before, the houses had been built. Maybe somebody had lived there. I don't know. Maybe there'd been a party there somewhere, and I don't know. Maybe they were just there was a group of naughty spirits having a rave, and
they're probably just laughing to see what I would do. They're laughing at me just running down the street in my little rucksack.
I think sometimes it's like Chris says, it's like a glitch. You know what I mean? It's like you get to see something really quickly, perhaps that you're not meant to see or something. But I've had something similar to that with the noise of a party in Chris's house, actually. We'd gone to see a well-known, renowned medium, in a theatre. And there was the 3 of us. There was me, Chris, and Christine's best friends at the Teresa. And they'd gone off to bed, and I was sleeping on the settee, but I kept hearing, like a really busy pub, as if they open the door and you can hear the noise, and then when they close the door, the noise kind of subsides. So it was like the door kept opening and it kept getting louder and louder and louder. And eventually I fell asleep. But when I was awake till about 2 o'clock in the morning, and there used to be a pub just over the road from where Chris lives, and it was a Wednesday night, and when we got up in the morning, I said to her, bloody hell, I said, do they ever stay back over there on Wednesday nights, like 2 o'clock in the morning? She's like, what do you want about it? Never heard
just crossing some times potentially then.
Teresa heard that chattering as well, didn't she?
Yeah, she heard it,
yeah. Yeah, it was like a door, you could hear the noise of this crowd, and then the door would shut, and then it would open, then it would shut.
Sometimes that we can perceive things. I don't.
There's definitely something going on, isn't there? There's definitely, what you want to call them, ghosts, phantoms, whatever it is you want to call them. There's something going on, isn't there?
I think it's down to us perceiving it.
But what it is or how it works is a different matter.
It's imprinted, it's there. Sometimes we get fleeting.
Because I'd love to know, do you stay here all the time? Can you pop in and out? These are the kinds of questions that if I've gone on a ghost hunt, I want to ask them. Can you tell me that? What do I look like? Can you see me? Well, I asked them I ask questions, I'll ask questions like, can you tell me the name of your king or your queen? Do you know what my king or queen is? You know what I mean? Sort of thing. Which kind of like, and I've had Charles. Whether that's theirs or mine, who knows?
Well, that's why I feel it's in my nature to ask questions. I don't know why, whether I was, somebody in a past life who, I wouldn't say philosopher though, but somebody who asked, who was hired maybe to ask questions like in a past life, whatever it might be. But I feel like now this is kind of partly why I started this podcast, is to ask questions and break barriers, basically, like get rid of the idea of paranormal, investigate, ask questions. Like paranormal is the barrier that stops us from learning. So this is why, like, yeah, I probably will never find answers to these questions. And sometimes it's just simply like, why do you need to ask why rose is red? Just enjoy the color of it, kind of thing. Be part of that experience. Look at the sky. Don't ask how clouds are formed. I feel like I need to know everything. Like I have something to explore.
It's also really refreshing that people can have a conversation about the paranormal and ghosts, and it's not all based on demons and being chased and all this negativity and horribleness, which is what you get so much of on the internet nowadays. None of it's really positive, is it? But I've got to say, in my lifetime of experience, there's been a handful of times I've been, oh, that's scary, but I don't know whether it's that scared me, or I've just scared because it's something that I can't work out.
I get that. What I mean? Yeah.
I think it's because we've got the old Hollywood thing, and all the rest of it. And in all my years, everything surrounding spirit has always been positive. It's always been positive. The fear has come from me. That night in Wales with you, it was, I know what I saw, and my head was trying to compute it. It didn't frighten me. The fear comes from within, doesn't it? And the spirit world.
Well, it's the unknown, isn't it? Is that not part of human nature that we always have and we always do? We fear what we don't understand.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So your brain can't compute. Your brain's going,
I feel like it's a programmed limitation. I feel, because we're taught to, if we encounter something we don't understand, our response is fear it. It could be an instinct to protect, whatever it might be. But then you question, like, where do all these things come from? Was it instilled in us at some point? Is it just simply an instinct thing? Is in the body trying to preserve itself? Obviously, the instinct, to not put your hand in fire. Obviously, that.
You have got the caveman. You've got a caveman that still lives in our brain, and that's very real. And that we've got a very. It's all based. It all builds up with other things as well. But there is a very real thing in there. And it's the caveman, then he, like, whoa, careful, there's a saber-toothed tiger around the corner, oh, careful, there's a cave bear that's going to hit you. Yeah, but it's a real thing, in our brains. So if it kicks in and nobody knows anything about it or what's happening, then that person is not thinking logically in the first place, so...
I get that, yeah.
So...
If you're like me, you just get a buzz out of being frightened.
No, I don't get a buzz out of being frightened.
Doing stuff like that, a bit stupid, but I like that feeling. I don't... That's mad.
I don't say I get frightened. Do you know what I do get? It's not a frightened feeling. I sometimes get a kind of uneasy feeling.
Yeah.
Just a kind of uneasy feeling. And maybe as a woman, you're kind of more aware of what I mean. That kind of feeling as if somebody's watching you, Chris. You get a feeling back in the day that some fella's eyeing you up across the room or being a bit too lecherous, where other people might not notice.
That last century.
What's going on. But if you're walking down the street on your own, you become aware that there might be, that there's, and that makes you feel that kind of uneasy feeling. I've had quite a few of those.
Yeah, that's quite normal. It's a good instinct. Yeah, because they always say that the brain's at its highest level of processing when you're in a busy room, because it's designed to watch for threats. So it's designed to kind of analyze the direction of each eye in the room. But that's why now I feel like, I don't know if you both feel the same, that I've reached a point in my life now where I'm moving away from like the fear that I had when I was growing up, and that may have been because of my religious upbringing, because I was taught barrier, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But when I've removed those barriers, basically, I've nothing but a love for the universe and a love for the pursuit of knowledge, because I feel like the more that I know, the more that I understand that my human perceptions are very limited. I can only see, smell, touch, hear, and so on. That beyond that, there are things beyond that which expand our understanding of the universe that we can't fully perceive yet. So now I'm in awe of the beauty of everything. I love to just learn from people's experiences or ask more questions about what's out there, but I feel much more fulfilled and better person because of that.
You're moving on to a frequency that's higher, and more positive. So anything, I believe that anything that's kind of lower in vibration or more negative or earthbound or whatever it is we want to call them, I think that they're not interested in us because they can't get anything that they perhaps need from us because we're of a different vibration. And perhaps we just don't intermix anyway. It's just completely two different vibrations. And it's exactly, again, from what you've just said, it's from losing the fear of it. Once the fear goes, you realise that you had nothing to be scared of in the first place. And isn't this, there are moments when you're like, oh, but that is your awareness or it's something else, and you're becoming aware that the atmosphere's changed or the energy shifted or something like that. But the fear, the real fear that stops you doing it and makes you really scared of it and think of it in a negative sense, once that goes, you realise actually it's lovely, it's quite beautiful.
Yeah, that's the empowering moment, isn't it? Well, I think we're going to have to round things up now soon because I can keep on talking for hours. Thank you both for sharing your stories. I first, just to finish up, basically, I want to ask you both, what would you say to somebody who thinks they've seen a ghost? What would be your best advice that they do to, to either it's understand it or,
Talk to me and let me print it and write another book about it. I want to hear anybody out there.
I think personally, me, I'd like to, there are lots of other factors that I'd like to play into. I'd like to know, what's going on in their life. How are they feeling about things? Are they in a positive frame? Are they in a negative frame? Is there something else that's influencing what they think they could have seen? Are they influencing it themselves? You know what I mean? I don't think everything's a ghost, or a spirit. I think some of it is our own energy that we just project.
But I'm open to hearing stories, and please, and ask questions down there. We want to hear you.
Love to hear people's stories.
If one question, I'd leave your details in the thing anyway. So I'll sort of just share stories really, because it's just good that we normalize these experiences really and start learning from each other. Like, you don't always have to judge whether what someone's experienced something true or not. Just listen to people, just let people tell their stories.
There are lots of people that just don't talk about things. They might only have one or two things that ever happened to them throughout their life, but they keep it quiet. Because, people will say, oh, you're mad, or you're imagining things, or you're this, you're that.
We're now learning that people just aren't mad, really. Like, there's a big thing we're kind of going through at the moment in terms of understanding, the actual real nature of reality and going beyond that.
If they are mad, then there are millions and millions of people that are all suffering from the same madness.
Yeah, the same mystery. Yeah, you can question with so many. Okay. Well, I'll just round up this episode anyway. So, yeah, thank you both for being here. It's an absolute pleasure having you. So thank you for taking the time. I've really enjoyed tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, yes, I'll see you all for the next episode. Happy Halloween. Is it Samhain? Samhain? The original name for it, Christine, or?
Samhain.
That's my bad pronunciation anyway. Either way.
S-A-M-H. Whatever.
Samhain.
Right.
I'll put the word on the screen anyway. Anyway, guys, take care.